Welcome back to the Peruvian Waltz podcast. I'm your host, Brian Birdie, joining you here from Lima, Peru. And we have, as always, my co-host, Peter Galindo. How are you, Peter?
I'm well, Brian, as always, here in Toronto, just, chilling and ready to get into some very in-depth discussions on a few very topical conversations I'm sure we are going to discuss a lot about.
Yeah, for sure. Christopher, I got to introduce you first. Who looks like he's back at his home at last after 2 pods of work doing this podcast from work. How are you?
No, I'm sorry to disappoint, but I'm actually at work. I'm just at a different place at work this time. I mean, it's kind of a running gag, Michael. I know that some of the listeners would know that I'm always at a different place every time we do the pod. So.
Well, this is kind of becoming the household now. You're doing everything. I'm still waiting for you to get in your rocket ship and go to Jupiter. That's what I'm waiting. I'm still waiting on that. Okay, well, before Google Hangouts, whatever this thing is called, ruins the new surprise. We do have a new guest on. Also lives in Lima, Peru, but he's not pure Peruvian like me. He's actually like the Australian said. He's a Palm. So how are you, Michael?
I'm very well, thank you. Yeah, I'm delighted to be with you for the first time of many, I hope, and looking forward to having a good chat about all things Peruvian football. So, thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem. And I'm sure you're delighted in this pod because Derby won, so it's not a sight you see too often.
It's been a good day. Let's hope it continues for the next hour.
Okay. Well, why don't we get started? So we'll go on to read a preliminary World Cup squads list. We're kind of mixing it up a little bit. This is where we were planning on doing this last, but in the pod, we decided to kind of express the first parts of the pod and do this first. So, I have my list up. We all have our list. So, Peter, why don't you read yours first?
Sure. So I guess we can just kind of read them in full and then kind of go from there. So. My goalkeepers are pretty straightforward. We've got Pedro Gaese, Carlos Cáceres, Jose Carvalho, and I threw in Lea Butron, injury permitting, of course. From there, the defenders. So we've got the usual suspects: Luis Advíncula, Aldo Corso, Christian Ramos, Miguel Araujo, Alberto Rodriguez, Anderson Santamaria, Luis Abram, Miguel Trauco, Nilson Loyola. Couple of so-called surprises, I guess, if you want to call in there, in Adrian Sella, who, of course, has been with the national team recently. Threw in Gustavo Dulanto, Brian. I know that you had him in your first squad a couple months back. I threw him in here this time. Alexander Cayens as well for New York City FC. Figured, you can never have too many center backs, I guess. And bit of a surprise, Ivan Santillan of Real Garcilaso, another Garcilaso defender, making my list. So then from there, the midfielders, again, usual suspects: Renato Tapia, Yoshimar Yotun, Wilder Cartagena, Pedro Aquino, Sergio Peña, Andre Carrillo, Andy Polo, Paulo Hurtado, Christian Cueva, Jefferson Farfan, Christian Benavente, Edison Flores, and my surprise midfield inclusion is... so-called surprise inclusion is Jose Manzaneda. And then the forwards, Paulo Guerrero, Raul Ruiz, Beto da Silva, and the two, again, sort of shock inclusions, if you want to call them that, Jordi Reina and Irvin Avila. So that completes my 35-man squad.
Okay, so there's definitely a few. There's not as many surprises as my list, I'd say, because I think I included a lot of surprises. This was a really tough one to make, I would say. Yes. And I think we can all relate to that. Because this one, we saw a lot of drops in form. We saw a lot of, like Carlos Asquez, most of us included as in our first squad. Look what he's turned into. He's just not amount to anything. So why don't we start with opinions? I guess let the new panelists come on. Michael, what do you think of your opinions on Peter's squad? And any questions you want to ask?
No, I think interesting. I think let's start at the goalkeepers first. I think we've got 4 goalkeepers there. Peter, did you put Butron in? Did you? You had Butron in?
Yes.
Do you think he goes? Or is he in your 35?
Yeah, I think he's in the 35 because he's been in there recently. I think the other candidate, if you want to take him out, probably would be Diego Penny based on what he's done at Melgar this season and last. Plus, he's been in there in some recent squads as well. So you can kind of interchange them either or. I don't think either one ends up going. But in a 35-man squad, you usually see 4 goalkeepers. Figure you give one of those 2 the 4th spot.
Yeah. I mean, with the goalkeepers, I always think it's when we break this down into the 3. I imagine 3 will go to Russia in the end. Is I always think we've got 2 goalkeepers are going to play who might play. So is it Gaese and then Casera? And then the other goalkeeper's not going to play, is he? I don't think. Mm-hmm. So I would always say take someone young, I think, just for the experience of going to a tournament. Mm-hmm. And I think if we're taking 4 for the 35, I think I'd be inclined to take 2 young ones. I think I'd say, right, Gaese and Casera are the ones we count on. And then I don't know if it's Duarte, the shocker on Saturday, or even the young, he's got Polish name, is it Zubchuk, or the one who plays for Laul? Yeah, he's a young keeper as well. He's not played so much, has he? But is it good for his experience just to if we assume he's not going to really play, would it be good for his experience just to go? So the goalkeeping, I don't know really. Is it would on? So you've got to weigh up. Is he such a positive influence in the dressing room? Can he share kind of experience with the rest of the team? I suppose these are all things that the coach has to think about. But I'd be inclined to probably take a younger goalkeeper, a couple of younger goalkeepers.
Yeah, fair enough. Certainly based on that, I completely agree with you. Duarte, of course, getting in the March squad, which was massive for him. And I mean, with the goalkeepers, I mean, you did mention it there. There's not so much of a risk that, it's not like, both of them are going to go down barring a complete disaster. Mm-hmm. And they're going to end up getting in there. But the reason why I kind of picked all 4 of those is because, as we all know, Gareca doesn't necessarily like to make big sweeping changes to the squad that's already there in place. Now, Carvalho's form with UTC has not been great. Yeah. Butron, we never know with his injuries. He struggled with that so far this year. So maybe based on that, and of course that's how Duarte got his call up in the first place, we figure, maybe then that opens the door for a younger goalkeeper to go to Russia.
No, absolutely. No, I can completely see your thing. And I suppose I look at the same observation I would make. I always look at age, and I think it's going to be difficult. There's going to be a few who will miss out of these defenders, won't they? When they get it down into the 23. But again, for the 35, you mentioned Sela. He's 29, isn't he? Yeah. I like the idea. Was it Dulanto? He's young. He's going to get some good experiences. Maybe that next generation that's going to come after. So I like that idea. Actually, I like taking the younger one, probably rather than Sela if I had to choose. But as I said, I'm probably with my 35. I'm thinking let's give some experience to young players at the moment.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. I was going to mention that. I wasn't going to mention that to my squad, but it's kind of like a message from Gareca. I believe the 35 can play in friendlies. Is that correct, Peter?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you can, but then you have to whittle that list down to 23. I think it's by the end of May. So they do have friendlies before that. Some of those players can get minutes.
Yeah, some of them might play for Scotland, which is the home ending. I don't think they're all going to Europe. I think just the 23 are going to go to the European tour. So they'll probably just play that one friendly against Scotland, and that's that. But go ahead, Michael.
I think there's been a suggestion as well that Gareca might not. I read somewhere, I can't remember which newspaper it was a suggestion that Gareca isn't so convinced about this kind of 35 anyhow, because of course it's quite inflated and some people are going to be disappointed. So I think there was a suggestion that it might end up not necessarily being 35, but maybe 30 or 32. Right. I'm not sure.
He's already had that problem before in the Copa America Centenario, where he called up some of the players, some of them rejected it, and they never got heard of again. Prime example is Alexander Cayens. Yeah. So that's the tough one for sure. But like I was saying, I think this young player thing, it's not just about the friendly, but it's about it's a message from Gareca. You're doing well, just kick off from there, and then you get better. So Christopher, before we forget about you, what are your thoughts on the Peter's squad, and what do you think about the differences compared to last time, if you do remember, anyways?
Jeez, I don't think I remember what he had on last time, but I think that his squad is going to look a lot like mine, the one that I'll be reading in a minute. Fairly conservative, I think, in the choices. Were a few surprises that didn't even really feel like surprises so much, like having Jordan Reina in there. I think that obviously Gareca has a solid base squad of about 25 players, and then he has another 15 to 20 players that are not surprises to see in case of emergencies. And I mean that was obvious. Like for example, against New Zealand when they got passports not for like the 20 or 26 players that ended up going, but for 40, right? I think Cuba from Municipal, from Muni, was one of them, for example. And that's just kind of the universe of the selection of players that he has in mind. So I think I'll save some more opinions for later for when I read my list.
Yeah, so I was gonna say something, but I completely slipped. Oh, so it was a joke. I was gonna make a. I was waiting for that. I was waiting for that Nene Rengifo and Gianni Esposito duo in the 2022 World Cup qualifiers. That's gonna be good. It's gonna be good. The Wanasino
Of course it's
connection.
going to be good. Of course it's going to be good.
The
We'll talk
Wanasino
about that.
connection.
We'll talk about that in a second. Yeah.
Okay, well, I guess we can move on to my list now that Peter's read his. So I'll go to. So firstly, I've actually included 5 goalkeepers, which might be different, but I was originally going to include 4, but then I had a chat with someone. You know what? 5, it's not totally out of the question. So first, goalkeepers: Pedro Alese, Carlos Cáceres, of course, Jose Carvalho, Diego Peña, and Alejandro. The defenders, I have the usuals: Alberto Rodriguez, Cristian Ramos, Miguel Trauco, Aldo Corso, Luis Advíncula, Miguel Araujo, Luis Abraham, Anderson Santamaria, and Nilson Loyola. And my 2 surprises are Gustavo Dulanto and Jefferson Portales. Okay. Now the midfields, the usuals: Joshi Mario Tun, Renato Tapia, Pedro Aquino, Edison Flores, Andy Polo, Cristian Benavente, Pablo Hurtado, Sergio Peña, Cristian Cueva, Wilter Cartagena, and I almost said the 3 shocks, but there's one I included below the list, and De Carrillo. And then my 2 shocks are Jose Manzaneda, which is a shock because a lot of us are expecting it, to be honest, and Marcos Yuya. Now, as for the forwards, Paulo Guerrero, Jefferson Farfan, Raul Ruiz, Roberto Siucho, Beto da Silva, and Ray Sandoval, and that's the 35 I predicted.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So yeah, who wants to go first here?
I do have a quick point to make, in that your surprises are very much like my surprises. I mean, Manzaneda being one, Dulanto being the other. The one that sort of jumped out at me right away, at least, and it's intriguing to me, is Yuya, for clear reasons. I mean, you, Brian, are a self-proclaimed Grioni disciple, so no surprise you include a Huancayo player in your side. So I guess maybe the question I have is, what would be the rationale for including a player like Yuya in your 35-man squad?
Well, Yuya is very, very technical, and that fits in the Peru system well. I mean, he's fast, he's good at dribbling, but I've always seen him as a tactical player, a player who's good at back heeling, he's good at making passes. He's not always consistent with his passing, but like when he does make a good pass, it reminds me a lot of the passes like Miguel Trauco makes, for example. So that's kind of my idea. And he's been playing well for the last few years, but now that Huancayo are actually challenging for something, he could well make it. I mean, yeah. In the 35, the Copa America Centenario, Landaudy was in there, and Landaudy really wasn't that very good, that good in that time. So I think that it's not really far-fetched for a player like you to make it. Now, I don't think he'll go to the World Cup, of course, but I do think he'll make it in the 35 squad, kind of get him to kick off. And there are rumors everywhere about him going abroad, which are usually false, but they're there. They're there. And of course, going to La U, Alianza, Cristal, they're there. So, yeah. So, who else wants to talk? Christopher, do you have anything else here?
No, I think I would agree with most of your list.
Okay, how about you, Michael?
Yeah, I've got 1 or 2 suggestions maybe, but I mean, I think I'm quite happy to hear Christopher's, and then I'll chip in. If Christopher doesn't mention any names I've got up my sleeve, then I'll go ahead. So I don't want to potentially steal Christopher's thunder. So I think I'll let.
I guess before I move on, I'll pick my. No one's really asked, but I guess I'll pick my reasons for picking Ray Sandoval and Jefferson Portales. I'll go over with Ray first. Ray Sandoval, I've never really been a big fan of him. I'll be just honest there. But Gareca's always kind of taken a liking to him. He's kind of called him up in backup situations. I think he hasn't called him up in over a year, but he's in backup situations. He's kind of trying to use Raimundo Sandoval, and now he's playing abroad. And I picked him over Ibn Avila because, Ibn Avila just got relegated with Lobos, and Raimundo Sandoval is with Monarcas, and he's actually starting a lot of the games. Not all of the games, but he's starting a lot of the time. Is he doing much? No, but, he's playing, and that's what Gareca wants. And, again, I don't think he'll reach the World Cup, but I think he'll be in the list for sure. And as for Jefferson Portales, that's my main shock. Jefferson Portales is very much like Gustavo Duranto. He's a tall defender, really hard to beat in the air. And the reason I picked him is because he's doing really well with San Martin, an academy that Gareca really rates. Gareca's always picked us in Universidad San Martin, no matter how poorly or well they're doing. So I think that is that's the reason I chose them. And if there's any other shocks, I guess Such was kind of a shock. He's performing really poorly this year for Universitario, but I do think that Gareca does like him. Gareca's always been a fan of him. So I think he'll kind of call him up and say, keep calm from here. We'll give him confidence, and then he won't go to the World Cup. So if you guys have any other questions, just let me know. And before we move on.
I think you're going to put players in who are – there's some players you can put in who are going to be devastated if they don't go to the World Cup. And then I think there's going to be some who we'll speak to and say, look, you're not going to go to Russia, but this is good experience for you. It's like you were saying, Brian, before. It's kind of a pat on the back to say, keep going, you're on the right path. And I think it's very difficult. For example, the Portales you've mentioned, Portales will know in his heart of hearts he's not going to go. So I think Gareca might well call up a few people like that and say, look, it's just, as I was saying before, just for the experience. I think you've got to be you have to be careful with those people he calls up who he doesn't think he's gonna take, but they think they've got a very good chance, because you can quickly have a situation like England had in '98. I remember England had in '98 where Gascoigne, of course, was a big name, and they called him up for this thing for the pre-tournament kind of camp, and they said they got them all in a hotel, and they had the private meeting. Glenn Hoddle was the coach. And he said, "Look, you're not going to France. You're not going to continue for the World Cup." And of course, Gascoigne, with the state he was, threw a massive tantrum, trashed the and it was the lesson to learn from that was with someone like Gascoigne, you've been best not to call him up anyhow and just being honest with him from the start. And I think Gareca will have to be very careful with kind of the personalities of the players more than anything. I think you'll have to know what they're like as really as individuals, not just kind of what they're like as footballers, but whether they can take the disappointment or whether he speaks to them about it before. I think that's fascinating.
Yeah, no, I agree. Peruvians have always had the mental problems. I wouldn't say they all have to state that someone like Gascoigne have. But there have always been nervous players in these games, and they're the types that will get devastated in these situations. So I think that's a very good point. Another example I can think of, although not the same level as Gascoigne, is Donovan, who I believe was included in the first squad for the U.S. in the 2013 World Cup, and Klinsmann chose not to take him because of a fight. I think it was like a fight they got into. I'm sure Peter could correct me on this, because Peter knows very well about these matters.
Yeah, Donovan did not get called up for 2014 in favor of Julian Green, mainly because him and Klinsmann just did not get along at all in general. And of course, it kind of paid off because Green ended up scoring that goal against Belgium in extra time in the round of 16. But you could also argue that if Donovan was there in Russia in form, the U.S. might have actually performed a little bit better. Maybe could have even potentially won the group over Germany. I know that could have been a long shot, but I think that's the other end of it. In that, if you do favor that youth over experience, it's such a delicate balancing act, right? And that's why, partially, Brian, I was actually thinking about Portales and putting him in my 35-man squad. The reason why I went with Duranto is not only does he have the same qualities with the height and whatnot, he's performed very well in the Libertadores, which is, of course, a grand stage, more spotlights on you. The fact that he's handled that pressure means that he could go into the national team, maybe not in this cycle, but in the next one, and actually transition into it pretty seamlessly. And that's also the same reason why Santillán is in my squad, along with the fact that there's not a lot of left back depth. Done pretty well on the continent, whereas Loyola hasn't really done that with Melgar. but of course is a key member of the squad. So that I think that is probably the one sort of caveat we want to say. And before Christopher gets into his squad, I think you can pretty much say that 27 to 28 players you probably got right away as being in our squads. And then the last 6 or 7 names, maybe 8 names, it could really be anybody. Gareca's going to throw in a lot of curveballs, I would imagine, for that 35-man squad. And frankly, I think if he were to call up someone like a Portales or even someone a little bit older at 26 like a Yuya, that's totally fine, because at least you give them the recognition that, hey, I'm following you, I'm monitoring you, but next time maybe your chance will come. Right now, we're just going to give you a look, acknowledge that you're doing well, and see what goes from there.
No, I think good points.
Yeah, so I guess we can move on. We've kept Christopher waiting long enough. Christopher, it's your turn to read the squads.
No, to be honest,
if there's no Nene Riki for Christopher Charun, I will be disappointed. I'll say that much.
Yeah, I thought about adding Conchita Gonzalez to my squad too, because come on. But there is rumors that he might be leaving Sport Rosario soon, which is unfortunate.
That's not beyond me, because he's been playing really well. So
he's been playing really well, and we know that from the beginning of the season, Alianza Lima and Real Garcilas wanted him. And for some reason, thanks heavens, he decided to stay in Juarez, because we know that Juarez is a beautiful place to go. But anyway,
wanted to try in Huascaran. And he bought built a tent in Huascaran and lives there.
Yeah, good luck with that. Anyways, let's not get too distracted. So, first of all, let's start with my goalkeepers. I have Galese, Casa, Carvalho. And for the fourth goalkeeper, I have Duarte. Why I decided to go with those names instead of the usual Butrón or Penny is because I think they are the older generation. And last year, both Butrón and Penny showed a revival of sorts, right? Especially Butrón was obviously the goalie of the year, if not the player of the year in the tournament. But we need a generational change. And for me, the future goalkeepers of the Peru national team is Duarte, Tupsuk, Prieto, and the one that played this weekend for Alianza Lima. Campos. Right, who of course had that amazing save in 2013 against Uruguay in the U20s.
I'd say Pedro Diaz as well. Pedro Diaz from Manucci. I'd say he's also one of the ones who will be one of the top goalkeepers. But we're gonna wait to get to Peru Meta first before making any bold predictions.
Right. So, anyways, those are kind of my picks for goalies. Let me go to my defenders. I am very conservative and very similar to what Peter had. Araujo. Rodriguez, let's hope he gets better and that he starts playing, because we're really going to need him. Ramos, Cela, Santa Maria, Loyola, Trauco, Corso, Advíncula, Abraham, and I also included Dulanto for similar reasons as the one mentioned before. Midfielders is the biggest list that I have, and obviously you can say some of these are forwards or whatever. Polo, Flores, Carrillo, Cueva, all familiar names, Hurtado, Tapia, Cartagena, Aquino, Yotun, Gomez, Peña, and I also have Yuya. Just like, honestly, I've heard Brian rave about him so much that he was someone that caught my attention. I was tempted also to include Concha in this list. Last time we did this exercise, I included Concha. I think things are not as well for him as they were at the beginning of the season, but I would also think of him as a surprise name that we could throw in there. And for the forwards, I have Rui Diaz, obviously, Guerrero, Farfán, Da Silva, Reina, Benavente, Hover, and Sandoval.
So far, no Ivan Bulos, which is good news, I think. So, what do you guys have to say about Christopher's list? Very similar to it's kind of like a mix between me and Peter, but missing Jefferson Portales, of course. What do you guys have to say about this list? I don't think there's too much to say, but let's give Christopher some spotlight, of course. Peter, what do you have to say about it?
The only question I really have for Christopher, much like my squad, it's pretty conservative for obvious reasons. Gareca himself doesn't change it up too much. Gomez's inclusion. Your rationale for him being in there.
I think my rationale is similar to what I was talking about before, in that he is someone that has been called up before, right? He's been in the squad, and that I'm pretty sure that is someone that Gareca continues to keep his eyes on. I think there is opportunities, like Michael was saying, for young players to jump into the list. Right, as this is a good job on what you're doing, and continue to do that. But other than that, what my strategy making this list was trying to see previous call-ups for the last year to year and a half, and kind of picking those names. So other than that, I don't think I have any specific reasons other than the fact that he's been with the squad before, and I think that there isn't anything in particular that he has done that would kick him out of it.
Yeah, fair enough.
All right, Michael, if you don't have any questions, let me know, because I believe you wanted to do something different. But before,
I concur with Christopher. I like Hoberg. I think he's been the shining light, probably. I think the only shining light really from Alianza. I think he was actually pretty close to the March friendlies, wasn't he? He wouldn't have been far away because he was playing very well, and I think he had a real dip in his form after not being selected for those friendlies, and I think he was disappointed. I think he must have thought he had a bit of a good shout. So I think at the moment, I think in 35, I think he's there. I'm not sure he'll go to Russia, but I think he's been playing well, and you never know in these next few weeks if Alianza have Libertadores and he has a few more good performances. You never know. It's something that Gareca will be watching, I'm sure.
Here, one more word about Gomez for a second. Yes, he has had some problems. Obviously, we saw him leave Mexico for the United States. I believe he hasn't had any minutes, right?
No,
but at the same time, we do have to remember that there's the Cueva experience, right? And somewhere deep inside me, I want to think that maybe Gareca's next project, next life-turning moment, will be with Gomez.
Yeah, possible.
Or Sandoval, which I include for the same reasons you included Gomez, because Sandoval is also kind of ill-disciplined. So there's another one. So what was it? I was gonna say, about Hoberg. I did include him on my original list back when Michael wasn't on the podcast. I did include him on my original list, and things have kind of changed for me there. I still think he's Alianza's shining light, but I still have kind of a love-hate relationship with him. I do agree with Michael's form has dipped though since March, and it's kind of starting to rise again. We'll discuss that later when we'll discuss the Libertadores. So Michael, you wanted to do your list in a bit of a different manner. Why don't you explain a little bit?
No, not really a different manner. I mean, what I did, I just looked at the one you sent me. I looked at your original list and I thought, kind of, who would I put in or who would I take out? And I thought Hoberg would go in there. I like Dulanto. I think we've all agreed with Dulanto, haven't we? More or less. I think we like Dulanto. The goalkeeper, I made a point earlier. I think the Carvalho. I wouldn't have Carvalho in there. I can see the points you were saying earlier about Butron, or I can see the points about another younger one. But I think the defense. I don't think we've got too many question marks there, do we? I think maybe they take a few younger ones, like we were saying, but I think the defense, I think we just, as Christopher so rightly said, fingers crossed really that Alberto Rodriguez is going to get fit, because I think it would be a great loss if he didn't. And so I think they just really need him to start playing a little bit for Junior, don't they, and get fit. And then up front, I was looking at Sandoval, I was looking at Sucho. Gareca likes Sucho. I think he's not so. They're in a lower. It's a difficult time to be at low, isn't it? No one's really standing out, so I think it's a bit harsh to judge Sucho from. But I think Gareca likes him. I think he'll be in the top 35. Sandoval, okay. So I like Hoberg. I think I would have Hoberg in there. But apart from that, I wouldn't be making too many changes. To be honest, I wouldn't. My list wouldn't differ very much from the list that we've already heard.
Okay, so I think that covers it then, because I think Michael covered it all there for us, because the list is going to be very similar. So I guess we can move on. I guess we can move on to like a segue before we move into the Libertadores. Melgar beat Unión Comercio this week. They barely beat them. They beat 2-1, but Comercio missed so many chances. And Huancayo, of course, they destroyed Garcia Cruz squad. They destroyed. It was only 3-0, but the performance was so good. And as for what am I leading into this? Well, there's technically a final on I think Saturday between Huancayo and Melgar. Now, what do you guys think on this final before the real final comes in? First, I guess we can go to score predictions. Christopher, who do you think is going to win here? Huancayo's playing at home.
Oh boy. I think that Sporting Cristal would personally like to play against Melgar. I think that it's something that has become a little bit of a derby this last few years. You know, seeing those two teams fight for those in those finals and whatnot. But I honestly think that Grioni is doing a good job at Huancayo, and Huancayo playing at home. Especially with how much Melgar was struggling this weekend, I think Huancayo will be winning. And I really don't see a goleada. I don't see him winning by a lot. I'm going to say a conservative 2-0.
Okay, Peter, how about you? What's your predictions?
I am with actually Christopher on that one as well. Melgar has a strong defense, not a very good attack. They lack a lot of creativity. Huancayo, look, they can tie this game and win the group, but we all know Grioni, he is too proud and too, dedicated to football, let's say, to actually just kind of grind out a draw. And plus they are at home and they've done pretty well there. So for that reason, I think that they will shut out Melgar and get a couple goals themselves.
Yeah, no, I also think Huancayo is going to win. I think it's going to be, I don't know how comfortable it's going to be. I agree with Christopher, it's going to be conservative. 1-0 or 2-0, I think it's going to be something like that. Huancayo is really good at home. Melgar are going to play well, but I don't think it'll be enough because they played well last year in Huancayo. I thought they played really well, and they still lost. So, and that Melgar side was a lot better than this year. So I think Manuel Herrera was still there at the time. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I know Omar Fernandez was there. We all know how much I like him.
Yes.
So, Huancayo is. I think the win. I think the duo of Yuya and Neumann has been the second best in the league, only to Costa and Herrera. And of course, there's other players that are underrated, like Ricardo Salcedo, who's been brilliant this season for Huancayo, and there is also. Trujillo, who doesn't play that well, but he knows how to bang them in from far. So, Michael, what are your predictions on this match? Huancayo Melgar. You and I actually saw the Huancayo Municipal game when we first met it in that pub.
We did. We did. We into it. Look, I think home advantage might just tip it in Huancayo's favour. I think it'll be close. I don't think there'll be many goals. I wouldn't be surprised. 1-0 Huancayo. I think it's been interesting, isn't it? In the newspaper, the president of Huancayo has been kind of taunting Melgar, haven't he? Saying that the Melgar are a little bit scared of, So I don't think it's going to be a 2-0 or 3-0. I think one goal. I think maybe Huancayo will win, but I wouldn't really be surprised if Melgar surprised us and did it. I think it'll be a close game. I think it'll be a good game as well. So we'll see.
Yeah, the thing is, Melgar have not lost a game yet. I mean, for how poor they've been, that's pretty surprising. And they have a tougher group than Cristal's group, I'd say. So it's kind of surprising they've not lost a game yet. Now, I will say that Tejeda has been brilliant. I still think he's missing something compared to Omar Fernandez, what he had, but he's at least been effective. So I can't deny that. Biancucci's not been very good at all. Narvaez has been brilliant. Penny has been brilliant. But they're lacking. They're really toothless. I mean, they kind of just like hope Tejeda shows up and appears with a goal out of nowhere. That's basically how they've been. Cuesta's not been playing a whole lot either, and he's always been very much a poacher because back when he was originally Melgar, he got all those goals because he got good service from Omar Fernandez as usual. I think Alexis Arias also gave him good service. Now he only has service from Alexis Arias. I don't think Tejeda gives him as good a service as the other one. And yeah, no, it should be a good game. I think we're all in agreement that Huancayo is going to narrowly win it. We don't think it's going to be too close. Because games like this are always very tightly contested, so it's going to be tough. But I think that Huancayo will do well. Now, there's another thing I wanted to say. It kind of slipped my mind. Peter, why don't you add some more thoughts on this while I try to to my memory?
Struggle. Yeah, but I do agree with you on Melgar being toothless and just lacking creativity. We saw that in the Libertadores, especially when they really should have advanced past Santiago Wanderers. It was evident then, it's still evident now, but I think their defense is what's going to potentially get them a win. And look, they have to win this game in order to win the group, right? I mean, there's no other option. And that's why I think Huancayo, this is very much in their favor because they know that they could just avoid defeat and do it. To me, though, I really am interested to see kind of what happens not only in this game, but kind of past this with Grioni because he signed the new deal to 2020. The president, I think, not so boldly saying that he has been their best foreign manager in their history, certainly proving that so far in his short time there. And, you know, we did discuss it on a previous episode, whether he's maybe a candidate to coach Peru in the future. Tactically, he's certainly a great coach. He definitely rubs people the wrong way. But look, this is a massive opportunity for him. If he can get the result against Melgar, prove himself against Cristal, and then have a pretty good, you know, apertura clausura as well. And if he can maybe even stick around or possibly even go to one of those big three teams in Lima, it would be interesting to see maybe how much his stock rises over the next year or two here.
Yeah, I did have a conversation about this with some people that Grioni, we've always had a history of like scaring managers away, mistreating them like Sampaoli. I think Grioni's not Sampaoli because Grioni's already kind of old. He's a bit older than Sampaoli, I think, or around the same age. But we should take advantage of him while he's here. I mean, he's eccentric, yes. He's provocative, yes. But he's like Pio Carrera. He'll get the job done. As long as he doesn't punch any journalist, then that's fine. So.
Well, he's the type. He's like the late great Brian Clough, Nottingham Forest and Derby County, and I think when they interviewed him for the England manager's job, they say he's the best manager England ever had, and I'm sure the reason was they're worried about causing some kind of diplomatic incident. You know, no one knows really no one knew what he was about to say, and I suppose that's the thing when you're going to be a national team coach. Sometimes they like people who are nice in a blazer and they behave themselves well. A little bit like Gareca. No, Gareca kind of is very mild mannered and he's very kind of respectful. And he says, and I think sometimes the federations, they don't like these kind of wild cards, these mavericks who kind of, I think kind of football lovers like us. I think we're entertained by them, aren't we? But sometimes the directors are a little bit wary of them. Yeah,
for sure. Grioni's kind of like that as well, but we'll see what happens. I am pro Grioni, as everyone knows that by now.
Sure. Let me say something real fast because we've talked a lot about Grioni and the national team before, but going back into the Peruvian FA and picking managers, as I was researching Peru at the 1930 World Cup just a few weeks ago, Peru has always had this tendency of hiring coaches that are small celebrities, and unfortunately, it hasn't really worked for us. And so it's not only that we appreciate Gareca's like calmness, right, and just kind of being chill and being composed at all times, but also the fact that like the Colombian coach from the early 2000s comes to mind. He did wonders with Colombia, right, in the 1994 World Cup. He comes to Peru and he's an absolute disaster. So we just that's the problem. Just if he's kind of got like an interesting personality, he's not going to do well with Peru.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting one. Well, anyways, we're kind of running out of time, so let's go to the Libertadores. We have 3 matches to discuss. We have to discuss the last match and the preview for the next 2 matches. So why don't we start with Michael, who was actually at the Alianza Junior game. I have to say a lot of things that I've already said, so if you don't like me repeating myself, I'm not gonna turn on. You should still watch the podcast. But just saying. If you don't like me rambling, then it's probably still a good podcast for you to listen to. So, okay, Michael, why don't you go first? Alianza Junior, what are your thoughts?
Well, an awful night really for Alianza, wasn't it? The game they had to win, and the game that they had to win, but they didn't have a shot on target. I mean, it was incredible, really. Everything was flat. If I could say that, I think there were 7,000 people there. The atmosphere was. I don't think the people believed it really. In the stadium, the players definitely looked like they didn't believe it. The first 5 minutes, I mean, really was just horrendous, wasn't it? They hit the post twice in the first 5 minutes. They could have been out of sight after 7 minutes. They eventually scored, didn't they, within the first kind of 20 minutes? And really, you were looking for a reaction from Alianza, but Alianza is a team at the moment who, they're just lacking everything, aren't they? They're lacking ideas. They can't string 3 passes together. They're looking slow, lacking in confidence. So it was a real horror show. And I thought maybe in the second half when they brought Quevedo on and they brought Vilches on, that maybe it would brighten up a little bit. But in the second half, still they were well off the pace. And they really at no time did you think that they were ever going to get back into the game, and it was really, really comfortable for Junior. Junior, of course, scored the second goal pretty late on, but Junior already were in third gear. I don't think they ever really got out. They never hit fourth or fifth gear. They were very comfortable. To say it was at Alianza, to say it was a game that Alianza really needed to win, well, I think it was just a deeply disappointing evening, wasn't it? I think it was, and it turned quite ugly at the end, really, because. The manager was getting a lot of criticism. The fans were very unhappy, not just at the manager, but also at the kind of director. And there was a lot of anger. There was a lot of angry fans. Well, a lot of angry fans. As I said, the stadium wasn't full, but the people who were there did not go home so happy.
Yeah, no, that sounds like the usual Limeño fan. They're just not happy at all, ever, basically, unless things are going their way at that moment right now. So I completely agree with everything you said. The game could have been out of sight immediately. I actually didn't think Junior were all that. We kind of had a disagreement with this, Michael, but the thing with Junior is I saw them missing a lot of passes. I don't know that they were doing it as a smash and grab. They could well have done it, but I also think there's some mistakes in Junior's in setup to the game, but they still won comfortably. They're still very deserved winners. I'm not denying that for a moment. I'm saying that for playing players like Ruiz over Alves, for example, who I've seen even Colombians complain about that. And yeah, it was. I mean, it was obvious that Chara. You started off, I think, the right flank, and the moment they saw Marina's uselessness, they moved him over to the left flank, and that was game from there, because there's no way Marina was awful as always. Now, the second half was interesting because we actually saw Benito try to make changes for once. He was angry. That's the angriest I've seen him on Atlanta in a while. He put Asquez in center back. Never thought I'd see that again, but we saw it. We saw Vilches back. Again, never thought I'd see that again, but we saw it. And there's one more interesting I forgot what the last interesting note is, but I did want to say one thing. Guidino on that left side, not a great player, but much better than the Francisco Duclos, and he's actually competent. He's actually fit for this. This is actually fit for this type of competition more than the previous players. I mean, he's not the best. Yeah, okay, we can all agree on that, but there could be a lot worse. He's the best they have, and I think he should play every game. He's kind of won us on a spot too, so it's going well. Peter, what do you have in these? What are your thoughts? Do you have in this match? Do you agree with me and Michael?
Yes, I agree with you on Guidino, although let's be honest, the bar for fullbacks in Alianza is very, very low. So low it probably actually touches the ground. So it doesn't take much to actually impress there. But I thought that Duclos, excuse me, Guidino was actually not bad, and I would actually like to see him in the league, first of all. I know he's actually done all right in the few league appearances he's gotten. So it'd be nice to see him get a run of games there, settle in to the role, and then grow from there, because he's still 21 years old. So, I mean, lots of room for growth. But look, I mean, at the end of the day, we didn't really learn anything new about Alianza, right? I mean, all their problems were very much portrayed in this match. As Michael said, they couldn't string 2 or 3 passes together. There was no creativity. Leyes is a disaster in the box. I mean, I'm sure a lot of Alianza fans are happy that both him and Lemos are going to be leaving in June, provided, of course, Alianza is confirmed knocked out of the Libertadores, which is looking very likely at this point. And yeah, I mean, really, we could just take any of our old shows where we discussed Alianza, put that conversation into this podcast, and frankly, it wouldn't be that much different. I guess maybe just sort of the one thing to add before maybe Christopher jumps in is, I can understand why there's so much anger towards Bengochea, because he isn't really helping his case with some of the tactics he's using, putting square pegs into round holes with, obviously wingers playing at fullback and ruining these kids' confidence, not playing the young attacking players. But I think Ceballos, the director, does deserve a lot of criticism, probably even more than Bengochea, because the squad was built very poorly. They lost a lot of key players from last season into this season, didn't really adequately replace them, or at least find players that fit into Bengochea's system. Now, if Bengochea had influence on who was signed, then he definitely takes almost all the blame. But if not, then he at least is alleviated a little bit because of that. Because when you look at the squad, it's just, I mean, you honestly can't believe that this same team a few months back won the league, because they just look bereft of all ideas and bereft of confidence.
Yeah, no, Alianza never looked like scoring in that match ever. And as about Leyes, he's one of the worst foreigners I've seen in recent times in Peru. I've always thought that the Peruvian league has improved in recent years, because like 3 years ago we saw some incredible bloopers. We saw like 3-4 bloopers per match. Now we don't see that. We just see players that are useless, but we don't actually see bloopers. So yeah, I'd say the worst foreigner I've ever seen here was Juan Manuel Coveni, who then went to Malaysia. Yeah, that's how bad he was. And he Leyes is probably a second or third. Christopher has probably seen a lot of bad foreigners too, because he watches a lot of Segunda División. So he also why don't you tell us about one of the worst foreigners, and then give your thoughts on the match in the same paragraph.
The worst foreigner that I've ever seen? Jeez, I don't.
It's too long a list.
Too many to name.
I think the one that comes to mind is the African player that's still around. I think he's at Pacasmayo.
Enajoro, no?
Enajoro. I honestly, I'm like, every time I see him, it's like, what is this guy doing here? It's like the most random place for you from like Ghana or wherever he's from. Nigeria, and he just like, I mean, I guess he just loves Peru, Maybe he found a nice like chincha lady, and now he's happily married. But,
loves the food here. Loves the food. Papa la huancaína. Too much Papa la huancaína for him.
Yeah, I mean, Michael married a Peruvian. Like, hey, there's their benefits to marrying a Peruvian. But I honestly, he seems so odd. But anyways, let's go back to Alianza Lima. I'm kind of tired of Bengochea just coming out at the press conference and saying, it's all my fault. Don't blame the players. It's all my fault. I think we've heard the speech way too many times. I think that he needs to take a play out of Gareca's playbook. Sometimes we think of, a coach comes and then like he's going to impose his style on the team. And, I'm going to agree a little bit with the fans in that Alianza Lima is one of the oldest teams in Peru, one of the most, with the richest history, with the most titles. And he needs to be willing to give that a try. He needs to be willing to say, okay, if these are the team's roots, if this is what the fans are looking for, then let's try to get some of that Peruvian waltz. Let's not try to be so pragmatically Uruguayan. And I think that I personally, I don't know what you think about Reinaldo Cruzado. but to me, Reynaldo Cruzado, at least while he was with the national team, was kind of a symbol of that. I think that Reynaldo Cruzado, being a player that went through a horrible, horrible time in his career the last few years, and who has been coming back, and last year was a wonderful year for him. I think that somehow for me, he signifies the Peruvian player in Alianza Lima, the kind of person that Bengochea should be looking into, and somehow build a team with people that are kind of his fit that profile. To me, I think if anything, that's the only thing that can save Alianza Lima at this point. I honestly think they're out of Libertadores. It would be a miracle if they won in Colombia, which I honestly I don't think it's going to happen. So yeah, now I don't see Bengochea leaving the team either. So I guess it's kind of like, all right, let's pick ourselves up and try to build a new team.
Can I just make a point? I think it's quite sad, and I feel a bit sorry for Bengochea because I imagine that he knows deep down that the squad's not strong enough for the Libertadores to fight on these two fronts. I imagine he knows. I imagine he has his concerns. He can't really say, can he? I mean, he can't really say. So he's doing that typical kind of taking the blame, as Christopher said. And yeah, I do feel sorry for him. I do think he's still got some credit in the bank, but I think it's running out. I think it's running out. It's running out quickly. And I just think there's a point kind of for Peruvian teams. I think it's really sad that the Libertadores, it's almost seen as people, I think Alianza fans, the ones I've spoken to anyhow, rather than be excited about having won the league last year and then going to do it, it's almost like become something to be frightened of, hasn't it? It's almost, and I think that's really sad. And I think the hope is whoever is kind of representing Peru next year, if Cristal can keep the squad together, I think it would be really nice if a Peruvian team went in and said, we're not going to be overawed by this, yet we're going to go and take on Boca or Palmeiras. Because, in the Boca game at the Estadio Nacional, Bengochea said, well, we can't really play 2-2, we can't really play them on their own game, so we're going to try and resist and maybe sneak a goal. And he did that, Palmeiras, didn't he? And obviously he's worried about playing 2-2 with all of these teams. So I think it'll be nice in the future to see a Peruvian team and say, look, you know what, we can really have a go at these and not be overawed or daunted by the task, which is daunting. I mean, when you look at the group for Alianza, it's a really hard group, isn't it? I mean, they got a bad group, but I think they should be doing a bit better.
Yeah, I know. I completely agree. It's basically just a way of playing that's not working. I mean, they just look so toothless. If Isa Melgado was toothless, Alianza are even more. It's quite shocking, actually. So I think there's no more comments to add. I think we're running out of time too. So why don't we go to the Alianza Lima versus Junior game? And I wanted to say firstly that Bengochea did include a player from the reserve, Fabio Rojas. So you chose the wrong player to burn out, and you're gonna burn him out anyways. So I didn't understand. You have to choose Osling Motor or Kevin Ferreira. Those are the two players you got to go for. Those are the two best in the reserves right now. There's also others like Kai who are pretty good as well. And you're going for Fabio Rojas, who's a defender, pretty good defender at that. But you already have a defense liner. Let's see, looking for a fullback that might try it out, which is understandable. I can understand that, but it's a weird, questionable decision again. There's not really much to say. I think we're going to see a repeat of the first game. I think Junior should win 3 or 4-0 this game. Mm-hmm. I think it's not about the defense. I think the Alianza are going to try and defend their best, but I think the midfield is going to be overrun. Cantillo was excellent in the last game. I think it's going to be the same here. Christopher, what you kind of segued us into this. I'll let you go first on this one. What do you think on this game in Colombia?
I think that Junior are going to have a great night. Honestly, I think I've said my piece. I really don't see. I mean, I know they had unfortunately for me, had a pretty decent game against Sport Rosario. Right, they're second in their group, even though they're still like 10 points behind. We all know that. I mean, like Cristal won that group a long time ago, but It was kind of a moral victory for them to go from such a bad game back into winning in the local tournament. I think that I really hope that that Campos has a good night and that we don't see such a disaster. But yeah, honestly, I don't know. I don't really have much to say. Well, maybe I'll be watching. I don't know.
Not much hope at all. Not much hope.
No.
What are you, Peter? What do you think of this upcoming game?
Well, we saw that Palmeiras probably should have beaten Alianza by a lot more than 2 goals, although, mind you, the second half for Alianza was a bit better than the first half in that game. Don't think this will be the case with Junior because of the fact that they're going to be playing in Barranquilla, where, of course, we know how daunting that is to play there for anybody. Yeah, just like Christopher, I agree with him. I think it's going to be a great night for Junior and their fans, boosting their prospects of advancing to the next round, at the very least, getting third place in that group and putting themselves in with a show for the Sudamericana. I'll say they win. I'll go with a conservative prediction here and say that they win 3-0.
And how about you, Michael?
Oh, look, the head says that having seen the game last Thursday, playing in Barranquilla, it's going to be very difficult for Junior. For Alianza. I'm going. Let's just hope that the junior players are extremely complacent and have thought, "Oh, look, these are rubbish. We've beaten these in and I think Alianza can. I'm just going to have to hope that the junior players are. I think the game's won before they've left the dressing room. No, it's going to be really, really difficult. But I don't think they'll get walked over. I don't think it's going to be a 4-0. I think Alianza are going to be hurt after what happened, and I think they'll want to put up a better show. I wouldn't be surprised if Alianza puts up a better show, but it probably won't be enough. So I would say maybe they lose 2-1.
Interesting. Although I think you're being a bit optimistic with the 1 goal. So we'll see what happens.
We'll see.
Okay, well, there's one more matchup to talk about. It's actually the match tomorrow, which I'm actually a little bit more hopeful about. It's Nacional versus Garcilaso. Now, I still don't think they'll win. I still think Garcilaso will win, but Nacional aren't very good at home, and they play very much like Alianza. They're kind of toothless. So I think that they got to really – the aerial thing can be a problem, but you also have Gustavo Dolanto at the back, who's just as tall as the Uruguayans. So it's – I don't know. Nacional looked decent in Cusco, but I think they're better away side than they are at home. And I think this is the best chance for Garcilaso to get a point away from home. And Garcilaso, if they want to go through the group, they have to win or draw. If without that, it won't work because even if Nacional win, they'll leapfrog them. And even if whoever wins between the Estudiantes and Nacional, they'll leapfrog them even further, and that will be that. So if Garcilaso draw or lose, they're out. They might still back third, but they'll be out if they lose. Not draw or lose, if they just lose. So, Peter, what do you give your opinions on this one? What are you most looking forward to, and what are your predictions?
Well, let's preface this by saying that Santos defeated Estudiantes 2-0. They now have 9 points and are 5 points clear of both Estudiantes and Garcilaso, who are both tied on 4 points. But, of course, Nacional and Garcilaso still have to play that extra game in hand on Wednesday. So that is something to consider. Garcilaso does have a chance to actually temporarily, after 4 games, leapfrog Estudiantes, which would be massive, especially because they still have to play them at home. Look, my only concern with Garcilaso is that since Tabaré Silva came in for Oscar Ibanez, at least when I've watched them, which has maybe only been about 3 or 4 games since he's taken over, their counterattack and the pace in that team doesn't look the same anymore. I mean, we saw that in the Nacional match in Cusco, where there were opportunities for them to actually run into space, and also in the Estudiantes match as well, and they just didn't really take it. And that is going to hurt them a lot because if anyone watched the Santos and Nacional match earlier in the Libertadores, Santos exploited the flanks, got the ball quickly out wide, utilized their pace in those areas, and completely torched Nacional and won pretty comfortably in the end. So that's what Garcilaso has to do. If the counters are still very timid or they're not as eager, let's say, to utilize that speed, plus if they're also if they also continue just to take shot after shot after shot from distance when just keeping possession would be fine, much like they did in Cusco against Nacional, then I don't think they're going to get a win. A draw would still be fine, of course, but I think ideally Garcilaso could be decently confident of getting a win.
And well, I agree with that compared to the other matches they have left. But Michael, what do you think on this one?
I think the first game in Cusco, Garcilaso had chances to win. I mean, they should have won, shouldn't they? I think Nacional are eminently beatable. That's not to say that Garcilaso will win, but I don't think they should be afraid of going there. And yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if they got at least a draw. But they really could do with a win, couldn't they? I think a win would be great. I can see them getting a draw. They could win. I'm not so sure. I think if I was a betting man, I would go on a draw.
We gotta remember that Nacional did beat Garcilaso 5 years ago in the Libertadores in Montevideo, but they lost the tie. But that was 5 years ago. It's all in the past. I'm sure Ramoa, Arismendi, not the one on Garcilaso, the one on Nacional. I'm sure they're a member of that match, but it's all in the past. I just wanted to bring that up. That was kind of interesting. Christopher, before we end the pod, what do you think on this match? Any predictions?
No, I think that, like you guys have said, the consensus is that Garcilaso needs to get at least 1 point. I think a draw is a reasonable score, but as long as they either get a draw or they manage to win the game, that will consolidate and solidify them moving on to the next stage, whether that is actually the next stage of the Libertadores or jumping into the Sudamericana, which I think could be a really good opportunity for Real Garcilaso to go far in that tournament, too. So, I mean, it's always a little bit scary to play in Uruguay, to play at Gran Parque Central, right? Such a historic stadium, just like they played 5 years ago in the Estadio Centenario. And yeah, if there's a team that in this group that they can beat away, like you said, Brian, then I think that would be Nacional. So I have my hopes up a little bit for that.
Let's hope all goes well. It is tomorrow, so of course I'll be watching with interest, and I hope it's more for them than Alianza. I'll say that much. So on the pod here, thank you guys for listening. My Twitter is B_Bertie98. Christopher, what is yours as always?
I'm Christopher Viscardo at VIZ_FC.
Okay, Michael, what about yours? Why don't you choose as your Twitter?
Good question. I can't even remember it myself.
I think it was at MT Williams.
Is it MT Williams? Is it MT Williams 1987? I think.
Yeah, that's it. MT Williams 1987.
You know what? I changed it. I changed it recently because when I was living in Spain, I used to work in Spain, and I used to be in charge of the Peña for Derby County in Spain. So I was the kind of my Twitter feed was the Peña for Derby County football.
Nice.
Spain. So of course when it was Rams in Spain, but of course once I moved to Peru, I was still a Ram but no longer in Spain. So I thought,
Brilliant.
So I've got loads of followers who are kind of probably somewhere on the Costa del Sol in Marbella. You know, all these people from Derby who have retired to the Costa del Sol in Malaga. What about Peruvian football for? We're only interested in Derby. Yeah, if you're watching.
All right, so Peter, what is your Twitter? What is the Peruvian Waltz Twitter?
Yes, my Twitter is at GalindoPW. The Twitter / the show the Twitter for the website / the show is at Peru Waltz. And Michael, no worries. I put all the Twitter handles in the description, so people will see it either way.
All right, so that will end the podcast for today. Thank you for listening. Tune in next week. We are signing off.
Thank you.